Alright, off I go on a 2-day overnight backpacking adventure on the Potawatomi and Waterloo-Pinckney Trail. My destination today, Green Lake Camp. So of all the things I could have forgotten, the one thing was bug spray. Fortunately, the temperatures are only in the 70s, and it's supposed to be down in the 50s tonight. So far no bugs, maybe no bugs at all. That would be awesome. Anywhere that I can hike, that I get to see massive hemlock trees, that's a blessing. That's actually one of my favorite things about Hocking Hills State Park, is most of that park you're just hiking through these massive hemlocks everywhere. And here there's actually quite a few too. This is my favorite kind of terrain, by the way. Walking on pine needles, it's like a pillow for your feet. For the Friday before Labor Day, things have been pretty quiet on the trail so far, and I'm quite surprised. So the way I'm hiking this today, I registered for Green Lake, self-register, drove up there straight after work, and got my tent set up because I heard from the super helpful outdoor husband-wife outdoor life Reddit post that that campsite tends to fill up fast, especially on holidays and weekends. So I got my tent set up there and drove over to Silver Lake, and that's where I started my hike. And I'm cutting pretty much straight through the center via the Silver Lake Trail. And I should be coming up to my first intersection soon, where I'll pass through right between both markers that have the number 4 on them. And from there I keep hiking until I get to post marker number 12, where I veer off to the left and hop off the Potawatomi and onto the Waterloo-Pinckney Trail. Post number 4. So this cuts straight through the center. You can also, if you were just hiking the Potawatomi and not headed towards Waterloo, you could go this way or this way and do continue the loop on Potawatomi. But going to number 4, that will take me over to 12, which is where you connect with the Waterloo Trail. Let's see here, if you do the Potawatomi, that's like a good 18-mile hike, which is what I plan on doing tomorrow. That's the plan anyways. Forecast shows that there might be a 40% chance of rain Saturday night, which would put a damper on things. Oh! Okay, yeah, I'll stop with that right now. Anyways, see you at post marker number 12. One of the few interesting things you see along the trail. Yeah, I mean, you can sleep in that if you want. Fork you'll come across if you're hiking from Silver Lake towards Green Lake Camp. Left is where you want to stay on the trail that'll link you up to the Waterloo-Pinckney Trail. I'm going this way because this is Pickerel Lake access, and there's a vault toilet, which means I don't have to pee in the woods right now. So, see you in a minute. First road crossing, which is Monk's Road, and just adjacent to Pickerel Lake access. One of the really nice features about this trail is that it is really, really well marked. Very few places where you could really get turned around or confused. So you have lots of markers like this. And somebody has done the nice thing of writing the road names on all the stop signs. is super helpful. So if you're really looking to start getting into backpacking, like, I mean, this is a great trail to start on. Just because it's, I mean, it's relatively easy. There aren't too many climbs that are too tough. Nothing brutal. There's some pretty decent scenery overall, especially on the Potawatomi sections. Everything's really well marked, and you can really pick your own distance. The Pinckney-Waterloo Trail is about 36 miles end to end, from Pinckney Recreational Area to Waterloo Recreational Area. And along the way, there's 4 different campsites. So down at the Waterloo end, you have the Pines, which is a hike-in only camp, and you can register in advance there. The next one is a little, kind of about, I'd say about 2/3 of the way from the Waterloo area going towards Pinckney, and that's where I'm staying at Green Lake Camp, and that's a self-register only. So you can drive in. There's about 25 sites there. Almost every single site has a fire pit and a picnic table. There's 3 vault toilets. They're all really nice. Registration is super easy. It's set about $17 a night. And then after Green Lake Camp, there's Crooked Lake and Blind Lake. Didn't do too much research on those because they're so close to where I parked and hiked in from. But yeah, you have lots of... Oh, hey, look at this little birdie. Hi, look at you. Off he goes. Man, that's what I love about getting out here, though. The smells, the views, the nature. So, fun story. I haven't always been an active person. It was just about 9 years ago I stepped onto the scale and was 200 pounds, and at 5'6" with barely any muscle mass, that's not very good. I was at a weird point in my life where I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what I wanted my passions and hobbies to be outside of art. And I realized I needed to make a change. So I started taking long walks, and long walks turned into running. And you know, I'd run at the metro parks and see people flying by on their road bikes, and I kind of wanted a little piece of that. So I got my first bike, fell in love with cycling. I've always inherently loved the outdoors, but I didn't grow up in a family that did things like backpacking, hiking, or camping, or really anything like that. And I didn't have the opportunity until I was in my mid-20s to really start getting out there and doing things. But I remember it was sometime in 2012 that I learned about this trail, and I started watching YouTube videos about it and really dreaming about getting all the gear to get out and do some overnight backpacking. And I ended up getting really into cycling and mountain biking, and just never really ended up doing the backpacking thing. So the funny thing is, my first foray into backpacking wasn't an overnight trip like doing the Waterloo-Pinckney Trail. My first backpacking trip was a 7-night, 8-day backpacking trip on Isle Royale. So this week-long backpacking trip on Isle Royale was a plan that I had in the works for about a year. I've been scouring forums and making a checklist. I mean, the second I heard the first story that somebody had about Isle Royale, my interest was immediately piqued. I mean, a remote wilderness island, you know, about 40 some miles long, No bears, that's a plus. But most importantly, once you get out there on the trails, it's just, I mean, solitude. It's just you and your thoughts. And you don't want to cross people too often. But I had recently started talking to a gal, and I had told her about my plans for the coming year, and asked if she was interested in joining me on any of them. And she expressed interest in the Isle Royale trip. And I was a little apprehensive at first because it was going to be my first time doing something like that, and you know, I didn't know what kind of experience she had. The development of our friendship was based around planning this trip to Isle Royale, and by the time the trip finally came up towards the middle of August, we had been dating for about a month after having talked for a little over a year. But man, what an awesome trip. 10-hour drive up into Copper Harbor, and we stayed the night out there and took the Island Queen ferry over to Rock Harbor. And a lot of people, they shoot over to Daisy Farm or 3 Mile, but we opted to do 2 ridge crossings and go up into Lane Cove. That's where we stayed our first night, which was about an 8-mile hike, and some pretty nice switchbacks. Yeah, all the campsites there were taken, so we ended up spending a night with father and son. They were pretty cool to talk to, and you know, we got our tents set up and everything, and we're getting ready to go to sleep. And one of the last minute items that we grabbed before leaving on the trip was a bottle of Fireball. So I figured, you know, we're going to be out there for a week. After one of our long hikes, we might want something to sip on and help us fall asleep. And right when we pull out the bottle and go to pour ourselves a little sip, the guy, he pulls out a bottle of moonshine and offered us some, so that was cool. Super lucky with our ferry crossing over Lake Superior. I've heard horror stories about it being super choppy and people getting sick and throwing up, but Lake Superior was cooperative and smooth as glass, so our 2-hour cruise over to the island was pretty nice. And one of the cool things about the ferry is that some people might not like this, and I was kind of afraid of it at first because I'll admit I'm a little introverted and I have trouble talking to people sometimes. But you're forced to sit with people because, you know, seating's very limited, and if you're going with just one other person, like you know, as we were, just the 2 of us, you usually end up sitting with 2 others, and you kind of get to talk to them about their plans for the island, where are they heading, you know, what's on their itinerary, and you know, and then they share stories about, you know, other places you've hiked, and that's always fun. But I think one of my favorite parts about the ferry trip was going out onto the deck and just watching the Upper Peninsula disappear over the horizon, and then going out to the front and watching the first rocks of Isle Royale peek up over the horizon. So before you begin your hike there, you have to talk to a ranger and give them your itinerary. That way they kind of have an idea of where you are, where you're going to be, how many days, etc., etc. And they give you your permit that you stick on your backpack. And if you come across, there's these shelters every so many campsites, usually just the campsites that are along Lake Superior, have these little shelters made of wood. And they're pretty basic, and they're surprisingly clean. Anyways, man, I'm really good at getting off topic. You put your permit on the door, just so they know that that one's occupied. So we're standing in line and watching other people explain their itinerary to the rangers, and the rangers, you know, going over it with them, saying, "Oh, you might not want to do this. This hike's a little longer than you might think." Or so we had worked on our itinerary for a couple of weeks, going over a map and using the mileage marker on there to figure out exactly like how many miles we wanted to do each day, and you know, the distance between each campsite, because we wanted to make it as far across the island as we could. So our plan was, you know, hit Rock Harbor. So from Rock Harbor to Lane Cove, which is straight up over the two ridges, and over to the Canadian side of Lake Superior. And then from Lane Cove back over the ridges to Mosky Basin. And then from Mosky Basin to McCargo Cove, McCargo to Todd Harbor, and then from Todd Harbor we did a slingshot around, oh, what lake is that? Shoot, I forget the name of it. Anyways, from Todd Harbor we shot over to Chicken Bone, and then Chicken Bone to Daisy, and then Daisy back to Rock Harbor. And overall that was a pretty good route. We got some decent mileage in, nothing that was too stressful, but the ranger didn't have any problem with our itinerary. She just looked at it, looked at us and said, "It looks great." So off we went. So our first night at Lane Cove, and then on our way from Lane Cove to Mosky Basin, there's this tower on the top of the Greenstone Ridge called Mount Ojibwa. And from this tower, I mean, you can see the crazy distance across the island. Awesome view. I want to say that was about 8 miles into the hike, and we stopped there for lunch, ran into a few other backpackers, and we came across a guy who was trail running the whole thing, pretty much, and he said he'd been there for an entire week so far and hadn't seen a single moose. So, you know, that kind of got us a little bummed, because we were hoping. Huh. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little jealous. Anyways, we really wanted to see some moose. Well, didn't take too long. Oh, here comes some more bikes. I'm gonna get off to the side here.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. So anyways, once we left the tower at Mount Ojibwa, we headed back down the Greenstone Ridge and to Mosky Basin. And there was a really long stretch where you're walking over this just slabs of rock, and it was starting to get late and it looked like it might rain, so we were trying to hustle, and I decided to go ahead a little ways and just kind of jog the rest of the way into camp and see if I could find a shelter. That way we didn't have to set up our camp or set up our tents and worry about you know, getting wet. Along that way we came across this cool little wooden bridge, and the trail that we needed to take to get into Mosky Basin went off to the left, and then there was the bridge and a little creek with a little tiny waterfall. We just wanted to go check it out, and suddenly I hear this like crushing noise, sounding like plants being crushed, and I look up, and here comes this huge mama moose down the side of this ridge. And so we stepped back, and because she was between us and our backpacks, we left our backpacks over at a mile marker to go check out this bridge. And oh man, yeah, big mama moose came down, crossed the trail, and then two calves come down behind her and cross the trail with her. So we felt pretty lucky to have seen, you know, here we are, you know, second day, 3 moose. Well, immediately after that, once it was safe to get back on the trail, we grabbed our packs, headed left towards Mosky Basin, and another mama moose and 2 more calves came walking down that same ridge and then out into the field. And we had to stand there and wait probably a good 5-10 minutes, because she turned around and made herself known. So we just waited for them to kind of walk off into the brush where we couldn't see them anymore. Third day, and I have more stories about our stay at Mosky Basin, But our third day, we're headed from Mosque to McCargo Cove. So you pass through Chicken Bone, which is the only inland camp that we stayed at. The rest of the campsites we stayed at were around Lake Superior. So this day, it also looked like it was going to rain. You know, these big dark clouds are rolling in, kind of threatening us. And so we were already in a bit of a hustle when we stopped for lunch in Chicken Bone. And once we left Chicken Bone, you know, I was walking maybe about 20 feet ahead, and Autumn shouts out to me, and I look over, and Mama Moose right there. And I jumped back, and just out of instinct ran about 10 feet, and then turned around, and we just stopped. And she came out onto the trail, and then her calf came out with her, just one. And she looked at us, snorted, kind of stomped her hoof. So we just, you know, slowly walked backwards. And she stood on the trail for probably about 10 minutes. And then they very, very slowly made their way off the trail and out into the woods. So we were very tense the rest of that hike. And on top of that, we wanted to get to McCargo Cove as fast as we could, because there's only so many shelters at some of these campsites. And if it was going to rain, again, we didn't want to set up our tents if we didn't have to. You know, it's better to just have one of those shelters and stay dry, keep your gear dry. So we were just pressing for time. But man, that day ended up being a blessing in the end, because, you know, here we are, like, on edge, because we didn't even hear that moose. You know, it just popped up out of nowhere. It's really kind of freaked out. And finally, we get to McCargo Cove, and that first shelter that we see, perfect spot up on the hill, was empty. So we were able to claim it. Within 20 minutes of being there, you know, we got all of our gear unpacked and set up our table, our picnic table, with our camp stove, and started making dinner. And a water taxi pulls up and a bunch of people get off. So we timed that perfect. So the next morning at McCargo Cove, we woke up pretty early, had our oats and our coffee, and she wanted to go for a swim. And I had heard that there was an old copper mine that you could hike to, a little day hike trail. So I threw on our smaller stuff away backpack and took a trip out there while she swam. And that was pretty cool. It was about, I want to say, like a 2-mile hike. And you could go down into this little cave, and there were the old minecart tracks still there. And you could see bits of like scrap metal and smelt and stuff like that laying around. Moose droppings everywhere, which had me on edge. But speaking of moose droppings, I really had to go number 2 when I was headed back out of the mine and headed back towards McCargo. And whenever I have to go to the bathroom, it's never like something that eases on. It's like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, emergency, gotta find a toilet now. So I was sprinting back to McCargo. So we pack up and head out of there. Our next stop, Todd Harbor. That was, I want to say, an 11-mile hike day, and probably one of the most beautiful campsites there. There's only one shelter. Somebody already had it claimed, and I think they were the only people there, actually. And that's Todd Harbor is just, Hatchet Lake. That's the name of the lake that I forgot. Todd Harbor is just about halfway across the island. Beautiful view. You can see Thunder Bay across Lake Superior from there. And oh man, we were we were blessed with one of the most amazing sunsets I've ever seen in my life. Just a gradient of deep oranges and reds, and there was these clouds. Just the way they were shaped looked like they were swirling around the sun. It was pretty cool. So, good night there. Wake up, next stop is Chicken Bone. So, we're hiking into Chicken Bone. We start seeing signs that warn of an algae bloom in Chicken Bone Lake. So we knew that we had to kind of conserve our water a little bit, and that we couldn't filter from that lake, just because there's nothing that will filter out that algae. That is a no-go. So we get into camp, and when we had passed through Chicken Bone before heading to McCargo. So we kind of like picked out a couple spots that we thought were nice that we would stay at. Unfortunately, those were already occupied, so we were stuck with a site a little further down the trail, off to the left, the opposite side of the lake. And we start setting up, and Autumn jokes, this looks kind of like a moose bed, you know, where you would set up your tents, because most of the campsites have, like, you know, kind of flattish areas that are the designated spots for you to set up a tent. And so we joked about that. Well, I wake up at probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, had to pee really bad. So I get out of my tent, stand up, take a couple of steps away from the tent, and immediately hear this loud snorting noise. And I just felt all the blood leave my body, straight from my head down to my feet. I went from having to pee to having to poop really fast. I crouched down, rolled back into my tent, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, I get scared easily, and you know, my heart rate's going a million miles a second. I'm hyperventilating practically, because I think that we're about to get trampled by angry moose. And I hear her wake up, and she goes, "Was that a moose?" Yeah. I mean, you could hear them in stereo. There had to have been at least 4 of them walking around right where our tents were set up. And it went from them snorting to making this like bellowing sound. And you know, laid there scared shitless for probably hour and a half, and then finally you just hear this whoosh. You know, they sounded like they laid down in the brush, and things finally got quiet. So I couldn't fall back asleep after that. And finally, when the sun started coming up, we got up, and we're trying to decide if we wanted to make breakfast there or just get out of there and find somewhere else to sit down and have our meal and our coffee. And before we could even get anything set up, big moose just stands up in the grass not too far from us, probably about maybe 20 feet from us. So we grab our breakfast stuff and run out of that campsite, down the trail, and over to the campsite that we wanted to stay at. And the couple that were there, they were already awake and packing up and getting ready to leave. So we told them our story, and they said that they heard the moose bellowing that couple of hours ago. And so we just chit-chatted with them and had our breakfast. And after about an hour, we went back to our campsite, grabbed our gear, and packed up and made our way from Chicken Bone to our last night stop, which was at Daisy. And we got to Daisy Farm. We'd hiked about 58 miles already, and you know, our feet were feeling sore, to say the least. She had a few blisters. I had at least one, and she's gonna hate me for saying this, but she actually lost a couple toenails from kicking rocks and roots. It's very rocky at Isle Royale. But we were still in really good spirits. And I remember that being a really fun night of just kind of like reminiscing about the all of our hikes that we've had so far, and all of our nights, what our favorite places were, and the people that we ran into. Because that's the fun thing about that place, is it's not like this vast national park. It's, it's a 40-mile by 20-mile island. So when you do run across people, you can name off all of the campsites, they can name off all of the campsites, and you can kind of share your story with one another. And sometimes people ask questions like, hey, how far is it to this point? Or did you pass this landmark yet? So it's fun talking about that. Oh my god, I'm already at marker 12. Look at that. That came fast. So this is marker 12. If you were to go right, you stay on the Potawatomi Trail, which you do for, if you were doing the Potawatomi Trail, you could do like an 18-mile loop. I think this is just, I'm not sure what this is, honestly. But this is where I'm headed, Pinckney-Waterloo. So I have about, shoot, where am I at now? I still have about 10 miles until I get to, between 8 and 10 miles until I get to Green Lake Camp. Well, sorry for that detour there. That post came up fast. I wasn't expecting to run into it so quickly. So yeah, we had snagged a really good shelter at Daisy Farm too. And so about half the time that we stayed there, half the time we didn't even have to set up our tents. We were able to get a shelter and stay the night there. And then, equal amount of nights we set up our tents and slept there. But the hike from Daisy back to Rock Harbor, maybe just because it was the last day, felt like forever. And I can honestly understand why people who are new to hiking or don't really do the whole backpacking thing too often, but are just taking a trip over to Isle Royale, why they usually stop at 3 Mile and don't make it to Daisy or any of the other campsites. It's because it's not an easy hike. Most of that hike, you're walking along these just big slabs of rock and stone. I mean, I thought it was awesome. And the views along the way were just fantastic, because you have these, like, just off to the south view, you have a view of Lake Superior and all of the little islands sticking up out of the lake. Well, man, what a cool feeling of being out there on the trail for an entire week, having hiked, by this point, over 60 miles, and finally, you see your first campsite, your first shelter pop up, and then you see the ranger station and a telephone pole, and finally you see the docks that you came up on, and it's just like, wow, welcome back. There's a weird feeling, but a welcome one. I mean, we really enjoyed our time out there. We would love to go out and do a backpacking trip longer than 7 days, but it was a cool feeling getting back to the harbor and getting to stop at that restaurant and have like a real hot meal and a beer. But I do have to say, on that point, while that hot meal was great and that beer was awesome, we never had a problem. We never got sick of the food we were eating out on the trail. We actually feel like we kind of ate like kings. Our backpacks probably weighed about 36 to 38 pounds going in, which I know a lot of people will give us shit for that, because that's a bit overweight. But if there's one luxury I don't want to skimp out on, it's food. I like to eat. And I like to eat well. So that worked out really well. But anyways, the point of this story, we were out there for an entire week, having only been dating for a month. And not once over this entire trip did we argue or bicker or get irritated with each other. I mean, kicking rocks, kicking roots, being tired, being threatened by angry mama mooses. I mean, there was a lot going on, and a lot could have went wrong, honestly. And it didn't. We became a team really fast, fell into a routine really fast. I mean, we each played our roles and just made it work. We had a fantastic time out there. And that's when I knew that I was in love. So, still took me another month after that trip to say it. But here we are an entire year later. I'm out here hiking the Waterloo-Pinckney Trail. And in another year from now, we'll be married. So, yeah. Fun story. Anyways, I'm wasting battery on my phone. And I only have one good charge with my little backup battery. So, I will see you at Green Lake Camp. See you at Green Lake, but I always forget this is one of my favorite parts of the Waterloo Trail, is walking into this. Might not look like much from the phone, but you come from this like tunnel of green to this big open area of trees just covered in vines. And it's pretty cool. That's it, Froto. Just 3 more steps, and I'll officially be the furthest I've ever been away from the Shire. So one of the more common things you hear people talk about in the world of the outdoors is gear. And that's a point I like to touch on. I think that people very often get way too worked up in having to have the top name brands and the most expensive products out there. I'm gonna have to have a $600 Yeti cooler and a $200 pair of Duluth hiking pants. Well, I mean, there's some truth to the bigger names having the better quality product, and a whole lot of truth in quantity, or quality over quantity. So like, you have brands out there like Coleman that it's a big name, everyone's heard of Coleman, you see it at every box store. But they don't just specialize in 1 or 2 things or 10 things or 20 things. They make a little bit of everything, and that's quantity over quality. So of course you're going to get a better product out of a company that specializes in a specific product, like specializes specifically in tents, or in Yeti's case specifically in coolers. But another truth for you is that you don't have to buy all of your gear brand new. Take for example this backpack that I'm wearing, Deuter Air Contact 85 liter pack, which is more than sufficient for a 3 to 8 day backpacking trip. I got this thing secondhand for about $90, which is at least 3 times less expensive than it cost brand new. Same thing with I've got a Osprey, which is a 35 liter pack, Osprey Talon, and it's a fantastic backpack. And again, I got that used for about $50 on eBay, and I lost out on absolutely nothing getting it brand new or getting it used. And yeah, sometimes you can even find like new old stock products that still have the tags. People just blowing out for ridiculously cheap prices online or secondhand. My ultralight tent that I take with me on trips like this, God, I think I got that for $120. It's a Marmot Pulsar, which is like about a 3-pound tent, or just under 3 pounds. And you know, That was originally well over $200. And you know, if you look hard enough, there are some reputable brands out there that make products every bit as good as some of the bigger names out there. But actually, the point of this, the other big truth. Oh my God, there's a horsefly on my phone. Oh, there it goes. That's the truth. But another truth, it's not really about the gear anyways. It's really about just getting out here and enjoying the trail. And you see that a lot. It's, in the world of cycling, it's the same thing. Like, you know, everyone wants the most expensive carbon fiber bike, and you know, your aero helmet and your deep aero wheels. And people get really caught up in that name brand stuff and having the lightest of the lightest. And really, the most important thing is that you're just enjoying what you're doing. If you get so caught up in the numbers that you see on Strava, or, you know, having the most expensive gear, then I think you're kind of missing the point. So just over 6.5 miles in, and I just want to say I've been pretty lucky as far as the bug situation, because I've heard horror stories about this trail in the summertime with mosquitoes being really bad. And I was bitten by maybe 1 or 2 mosquitoes so far. So I would say that's a win. Check out this special little guy. You have some pretty cool face markings. Almost looks like a leaf. Huh. Look at him sticking that little arm out like he wants a high five. But I'm not going to give you a high five because you're an amphibian. And I don't want to touch you with my oily skin. Happy hopping, buddy. Coming from Silver Lake, the mile markers count backwards. So mile 26, I'm about roughly halfway to Green Lake Camp. Absolutely beautiful out here. You know, this trail is usually heavily trafficked with the 3 B's, bugs, bikes, and backpackers. And I have seen very few of any of those things today. And look what we got here, some lady slippers. And these purple plants, as pretty as they are actually an invasive species. So at the DTE Energy Foundation Trail, there's 4 loops there now, and one of them is called the Big Kame. And I was wondering where they got that name from, because I mean, I know where Wynn gets its name from and where Green Lake obviously gets its name from. And Kame, as I just learned from this very informative little post out here in the middle of nowhere, It's apparently a hill that's formed underneath a glacier. And they're called Kames. Kame forming within the glacier. Huh, fun fact of the day. Just came across this nice little switchback. Can't really see the depth with the phone, but looks like a pretty good hill. A lot of people say that most of the Pinckney-Waterloo Trail is like a green tunnel, and that's mostly true. But there's a couple hills here and there, and there's a handful of little boardwalks. Those are probably my favorite areas. And I will definitely second everyone's notion about the trail being well marked, because if it weren't for all of the markings, you could easily get lost here, because there are a lot of spur trails. Check out this fungus. Looks like a coral reef or something. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Fun. I am 10.25 miles in, and I just crossed M52, as you can probably hear in the background. So I'm getting pretty close to Green Lake. Probably about another 2.5 to 3.5 miles. My watch says 10.6, but I think it gypped me like 1.5 miles, because I know it's at least 12 miles to get out to Green Lake Camp from Silver Lake. But at last, I am here. 3 hours and 40 minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna head into camp, check out my campsite, and then I might turn around and continue down the trail for a little bit and get some more hiking in, because it's still quite early, and I still have a couple hours of sunlight left. Let's see, it's 5:57, sunset is at 8:16, it looks like. So here we are at Camp Green Lake. It's labeled as a rustic campsite, but it's definitely a drive-in campsite. It is self-registration, so you come in and fill out a little form, rip off a piece, put it in your car dashboard, or if you're hiking in, there's a tab that you put on your post. With it being Labor Day weekend, I did the smart thing and kind of cheated, and I came here early in the day, set up my tent and registered, and then drove out to Silver Lake and hiked in via Waterloo-Pinckney Trail. So this is my tent. It's a nice little cocoon, super light. And look at this, I got my little fire pit and little picnic table. It's still early though, so I think I'm gonna take a break, have a little snack, maybe take a shot of Fireball, and I think I'm gonna go out and hike for at least another 1.5 hours. All right, catch you later. Here's a road crossing I'm really familiar with, Cassidy Road. This takes you into the secondary parking lot for the DTE Foundation Trail, mountain bike trail, which is by and large the best mountain biking in the lower peninsula of Michigan. I mean, I've ridden Addison Oaks, Stony Creek, Island Lake used to be my jam, Bloomer, you name it. But ever since I started riding at DTE, I haven't been to any other park I rode Island Lake once this year. There's just no reason to ride anywhere else. It's that fun. I'll never go back to Cedar Point because why would I drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to wait in line 2 hours for a 15-second ride when I can get on my mountain bike, only drive an hour, get on my mountain bike, ride for 2-3 hours, and have more fun than I would ever have on any roller coaster. If you love backpacking and trail running and you haven't tried mountain biking, I urge you, go grab yourself a good mountain bike. Go check out pinkbikes.com or eBay or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. Get yourself like a Track, Cannondale, Giant, Fuji, something decent that can handle the trails. Do a little research, get yourself a mountain bike that fits you. Go out and hit some trails, have a blast. It's a lot of fun. And DT is a great place to get started. That trail, right now they have 4 loops. There's one more loop planned. The first loop was Green Lake, which is a 5.25 mile loop. Relatively flat. Does have some little hills and a couple climbs. Nothing crazy though. You can pick up some good speed on that trail if you want to. And look at this guy. And you can get some air on that trail. But it's a good place to get your bearings if you're just getting into mountain biking, the Green Trail. Once you feel comfortable on that, you can graduate to Big Kame. As I learned today, it's pronounced Kame and not Kame. That trail has some pretty scary obstacles, but you can ride. You have the option to ride around most of them, or just walk your bike through the ones that you don't want to do. But if you get comfortable with them and you learn them, it becomes a blast. And then once you're comfortable on that trail, move on to Win. And that trail is an absolute freaking roller coaster. I go out there once or twice a week. It's a 2-hour drive round trip. Worth it, absolutely. I haven't checked out Sugarloop yet. That's the newest one, just opened this month. But I'll probably take my bike out there and scope it out soon. So, I am about a little over a mile west of Green Lake Camp. And just wanted to see what more the trail has to offer going this way. And there's some variation. I like it. This has been a great day. It's been a great hike. I've really been enjoying myself out here. Rambling into my phone and letting you listen to my random thoughts. I hope you're not playing a drinking game out of how many times I say Anyways, I'm probably going to turn the camera off for now until I get back to camp. Alright, I've officially hiked another 2 miles in 40 minutes. It's starting to get a little later in the day, so I'm probably going to turn around and head back to camp, make myself dinner, start a fire, and have that Ypsilanti Brewery Strawberry Blonde Ale that's been laying underneath my pillow in my tent. See y'all back at camp. Just got back to camp, got myself a little fire going, making myself some mashed potatoes. This is the camp favorite. Getting ready to pour myself a little glass of Fireball and enjoy the rest of the night. Got my feet loose, my thermal on, feels great. Got 16 miles under the belt, and feeling pretty good about that. The goal tomorrow is to be out of here before 8, and I'm going to try to get at least 20 miles in before heading back to camp, and then maybe another 12 to 15 on Sunday, and that'll be a wrap for a very pleasant weekend. Despite what people might say about the Waterloo-Pinckney Trail, it might not be Glacier National Park, might not be Isle Royale or the Grand Canyon, but it's less than an hour away from my house, and for what it has to offer, it exceeded my expectations. Yeah, this will probably be my last video because I'm an idiot and I totally forgot my USB cable for my phone in my car. So I'm charging up the Garmin, and maybe I'll swing by my car if I hike out that way tomorrow and grab my charging cable. But if I don't, this will be my last video. Signing out for the night. Good morning. It is 6:50 a.m. I've been up for about 25 minutes getting myself some oats ready, some coffee, and just watching the sunrise over Green Lake. Temperatures are in the low 50s, a little chilly, but my mummy bag, which is just a cheap one I bought off of Amazon, kept me super warm, so that was not an issue. Phone battery is officially at 7%, so more than likely this will actually be my last video. At least unless I hike out to my car. But I kind of want to see more trail rather than what I've already seen. So anyways, had a crazy dream last night that I was attacked by a raccoon through my tent. I just passed through Blind Lake Campground. I'm at about 22 miles for the day. I'm headed towards post marker number 12, and once I get there, I'll have 7 miles left before I'm back at Green Lake. So that'll put me at just right around 30 miles for today. Feeling pretty good though. I made it back to my car and charged my phone up to about 40%. Had a nice snack break there. Yeah. All right, I'm officially back on the Waterloo-Pinckney Trail, so I've got 7 miles to go, and I'll hit that 30. So I didn't do the entirety of the Potawatomi Trail like I wanted to, because I would have been hiking back to camp for a couple hours with my headlamp, and I'm not really wanting to do that, nor did I want to go over 30 miles. So what I did the rabbit ears on the way back into Silver Lake, and then from Silver Lake, I took Crooked Lake Trail back into the Potawatomi, and then hit the shortcut to marker, yeah, so you come up to a sign that heads you towards 11, but you turn left for 10, and that's the shortcut that takes you to 12. So that's how I did that. Yeah, all in all, feeling pretty great. I've really enjoyed the trail. Can't wait to come back. Mile 26.8. I've made it to Lyndon Park. Really nice bathroom. I am stopping to take a break and letting my feet air out. I'm getting delirious. I've only taken a 40-minute break today. So this is going to be my second break, and then it'll be the home stretch. I should have about 2.5-ish miles from here, hopefully. Oh, over and out. I don't know how in the world I didn't notice these yesterday. Oh man, if only my camera really picked up the color. These things are like practically fluorescent orange. Like hunting orange. Here we are, mile 28.7. Crossing M52 at last. Thank goodness. My feet are screaming, my hammies are tightening up, and I'm ready to be sitting in front of a fire eating some mashed potatoes. Got about a mile to go. Gonna get my bag all packed up, and in the morning head back to Silver Lake. I was on the trail by 8:30 this morning and got back to camp at 6:45 p.m. on the button. Came in just under 30 miles, and I am happy to be back. Well, that's a wrap. I'm all packed up, getting ready to make my 12-mile voyage back to Silver Lake. Looks like I've got a little bit of rain to hike through, so I imagine my feet are going to get pretty swampy. I'm trying to keep those Ziploc bags on my feet as long as I can. I should have brought my booty covers. Well, it's been a great trip. Hopefully this rain doesn't put a damper on things. Till next time. A 2-night backpacking trip. Not bad. Feeling pretty good. Definitely glad to be done though. I'm feeling pretty sore. So, gonna go home, take a hot shower, eat some real food. Hope you enjoy my ramblings.